Don Draper. The name evokes a certain mystique, a man who seemingly wrote the rulebook for modern advertising, or at least AMC's Mad Men would have us believe. But here's the question, is Don Draper the best adman in the world, or is he just a great character in a well-written drama? Let's dig into the myth, the man, and the magic of Madison Avenue. Don Draper is a creative director of Sterling Cooper, a fictional ad advertising agency in 1960s New York. He's brilliant, charismatic, and deeply flawed. But what makes him so fascinating is his uncanny ability to sell, whether it's a product, a pitch, or even himself. In the world of Mad Men, Don isn't just an ad man, he's the ad man. His ideas are sharp, persuasive, and timeless. But let's break down what makes him so good, looking at some of his most iconic sales pitches. Kodak Carousel, the power of nostalgia. First up, the Kodak Carousel, Season 1, Episode 13. Don's tasked with pitching this new product. Now, most pitches would focus on the technology. Look how sharp the images are, or it's so easy to use. But Don, he flips the script entirely. This is not a spaceship, it's a time machine. It goes backwards and forwards. It takes us to a place where we ache to go again. This pitch works because Don understands something fundamental about humans. We're emotional creatures. The Kodak Carousel isn't about slideshows. It's about nostalgia, that deep, bittersweet longing for the past. And Don nails it. He sells a feeling, not a product.
But he also talked about a deeper bond with the product. Nostalgia.
But to truly understand the power of this scene, we need to unpack everything that led Don Draper to this moment. Because behind the brilliance of this pitch is a man at war with himself. In this episode, we see Don, as he so often is, detached, distracted, and consumed by his work. His wife Betty suggests they go on a family trip for Thanksgiving, but Don, as always, prioritizes the office over his family. He uses work as both a shield and an escape, avoiding the intimacy and vulnerability of his own home life. But here's the twist. While Don rejects the chance to spend time with his family, he's quietly reminded of what he's losing. Those old photos he flips through aren't just props. They're a window into what he's sacrificed. The writing here is subtle but brilliant, showing us a man who buries his guilt beneath the surface. And then we get to the pitch. This is where everything Don has been feeling, his guilt, his longing, his memories, comes together. Watch how he starts the presentation. He doesn't dive into features or marketing language. He pauses, almost reflecting, and then he speaks. This is not a wheel, it's a carousel. It lets us travel the way a child travels, around and around, back home again, to a place where we know we are loved. This isn't just a pitch, it's a confession. Don is selling nostalgia, but he's also confronting his own. In this moment, he realizes what he's been missing, what he's already lost. He draws from his personal pain to craft the perfect emotional hook. It's both genius and tragic. While he's able to articulate this universal longing for home and family, he's unable to live it himself. Look at the images on the screen. Don and Betty, their kids, moments of happiness, frozen in time. These aren't just slides, they're Don's memories. But here's the irony. The man selling nostalgia is completely disconnected from it. He doesn't live in those moments anymore. He's selling the idea of connection, but his own life is defined by distance. And here's the gut punch. After delivering one of the greatest pitches in advertising history, Don comes home to a cold, empty house. Betty and the kids are already gone for Thanksgiving. It's a moment of profound isolation, and it hits harder because of everything that came before. Don can sell the dream, but he can't live it. This scene is a microcosm of Don's character. His genius as an ad man comes from his ability to tap into universal human emotions, but it's also the product of his own deep emotional wounds. He knows how to sell happiness because he's constantly searching for it himself. So what can we learn from this episode? On the surface, it's a lesson in the art of storytelling and advertising. Don Draper turns a simple product into something deeply meaningful, but beneath that, it's a cautionary tale. Don's ability to sell emotion comes at a cost of his own. He sacrifices the real for the ideal, pushing away the people he loves in the pursuit of professional perfection. And while this makes him a brilliant ad man, it also makes him a deeply flawed human being. In the end, Don Draper's genius is inseparable from his tragedy. He shows us that the best stories are the ones that come from the heart, even if the heart telling them is broken. Then there's Lucky Strike, Season 1, Episode 1, The Challenge. Cigarettes just got exposed as dangerous and deadly. Most advertisers would panic, but Don, he reframes the conversation. Advertising is based on one thing, happiness. And do you know what happiness is? It's a billboard on the side of the road that screams reassurance, that whatever you're doing is okay.
This is the greatest advertising opportunity since the invention of cereal. We have 6 identical companies making 6 identical products. We can say anything we want.
Don shifts the focus away from the health risks and onto a meaningless yet comforting phrase. Suddenly, Lucky Strike feels safe, familiar, and appealing. It's not about facts, it's about perception. So, is Don Draper the best ad man in the world? It depends on how you define best. If we're talking about creativity, persuasion, and showmanship, he's definitely at the top. But Don isn't a real person. He's an archetype, the flawed genius who reflects our ideas and insecurities.
I give you money, you give me ideas.
And you never say thank you!
That's what the money is for!
Advertising today owes a lot to the Don Drapers of the past. Real or fictional, the best ads still tap into human emotions, tell stories, and make us feel something. And that's what Don Draper does best. He reminds us that great advertising isn't about selling products, it's about selling meaning.
So how do we make it fun? Eat life by the bowlful. Little kid, big bowl, big spoon.
Don Draper walks into the conference room with Miller Beer executives, a place where he's expected to pitch his brilliance. But instead of diving into the task, he pauses, looks out the window, and eventually walks out. This moment is significant in understanding Don's complex relationship with his work and identity, the moment of realization. The key to this scene lies in Don's body language and the decision to leave. When he enters the room, he's carrying the weight of years of success and also his growing dissatisfaction. He's a master at selling ideas, yet here, his demeanor suggests something deeper. By pausing to look out the window, Don is physically and metaphorically distancing himself from the work. It's as if he's looking for an escape, seeking a moment of clarity that will give him purpose beyond just selling products. Don Draper has spent his career selling more than products. He's been selling emotions, lifestyles, and dreams. But in this scene, he seems disconnected from that drive. It's not just about Miller Beer or the pitch. It's about the realization that he's been selling something empty. He's become aware that he's been trapped in a cycle of selling consumerism without a deeper purpose or personal fulfillment. The glance out the window, away from the pitch, speaks volumes. It's a symbolic gesture of wanting something more, but not knowing where to find it. Don's job and his identity as an ad man has always been intertwined with his sense of self-worth. He's built a career around controlling his image and crafting messages that define others. Yet at this moment, his own image starts to feel hollow. He is faced with a crisis of meaning. What does it all add up to? Is the prestige of being an ad man enough? In this scene, Don's withdrawal from the situation suggests that he's been confronting the emptiness behind the facade. Don's emotional struggle throughout the series has always been about reconciling the man he wants to be with the man he's become. Here, he realizes that his job as an ad man doesn't fulfill him the way it once did. The decision to leave Miller Beer isn't just about rejecting that particular client. It's about rejecting the constant demands of the ad world, which for all its glamour may no longer align with his internal desires or personal truth. It's a fleeting moment where Don faces the fragility of his professional identity. The window is a powerful visual tool. It separates the inner world with the conference room from the outer world where Don looks out to. This separation represents his internal conflict. He's physically in the room but mentally and emotionally detached. The act of gazing out the window represents his longing for something different, something real, beyond the artificial world of advertising. In this scene, Don Draper isn't just rejecting Miller Beer, he's rejecting a life where his value is determined by his ability to sell. It's a subtle moment of self-realization, one that speaks his increasingly disillusionment with the job that's defined him for so long. It's not so much about a specific pitch or the client, but about the broader existential question, what is this all for? This is a pivotal moment for Don, one that highlights his internal conflict and foreshadows his eventual breakdowns and attempts to rebuild a more meaningful life. He may leave the room physically, but it's clear that, emotionally, he's already begun the process of walking away from the ad world, even if he doesn't fully know what he's walking towards. At the end of the day, Don Draper isn't just a character in a TV show. He's a symbol of the power of storytelling. And whether you think he's the best ad man in the world or not, one thing's for sure, Don Draper knew how to sell an idea, and that's what great advertising is all about. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.